I mean, what gets you out of bed in the morning? There's a Japanese word called Ikigai. Have you ever heard that
No, I
before?
haven't.
What is your Ikigai? Like, what is your reason for being? What is your reason for getting out of bed in the morning?
Cheerios and coffee.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. Cheerios and coffee.
Alrighty, it is time to stop hitting snooze and awaken to a life worth being. The fun and inspiring podcast that dives deep into what makes life truly fulfilling. I'm your host, Sue Willoughby, a self-proclaimed badass transformational life coach for women over 40. Join me as I explore the extraordinary journeys of ordinary people who've transformed their lives from the inside out. Tune in weekly to uncover the secrets to smashing through your perceived limits and creating a life that's not just well lived, but totally worth being.
All right. Speaking of rocking out, thank you so much for joining me today. My guest today is I've known her for a little bit of time. She is a Renaissance woman. She's a serial entrepreneur. She is a musician. She is a self-taught artist and just kind of an all-around badass. Let me introduce Helena Rogers. Helena, thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks, Sue. Good to see you as always. My buddy, my equine friend.
Yeah, my musical artist friend.
Yeah.
So I met Helena probably about 30 years ago in a very similar situation. A mutual friend of mine and I were doing a video project for school, and we had to do an interview. So we called up Helena and interviewed her at her record store back then. And I want you to tell me a little bit about your record store back in the day. So I said she was a serial entrepreneur, so tell us about your entrepreneurship.
So the record store was born out of a resistance to someone else's ideas that we didn't like. And we thought, the hell with that. We can do our own store and do it the way we want. And so my then partner, John, grew up on Mercer Island, so he decided that we should open the store in Bellevue. Well, we decided, he didn't decide. And so that was back in 1976.
Ooh.
And on the little ledger that we used to handwrite all our sales, I found one of those a few years ago, and on one of the pages we would doodle and write things, and it said President-elect Jimmy Carter. So that's some old shit there.
Yes.
You know.
Serious.
We had that store over in Bellevue for about 26 years.
What was the name of the store?
It was called Ruboto Records.
What does that mean?
It's a musical term that means to play without a beat. So basically,
sounds like jazz.
Yeah, it's like free form. Like it sounds like nobody knows what they're doing and they're just tuning up, and then all of a sudden everybody will come in right where they're supposed to.
Oh, I was gonna say it sounded like me for a little bit, because I would sound like I don't know what I'm doing because I don't. So.
Oh, you. Yeah. So anyway, we got that going, and John was a great musicologist, still is to this day. He's always reading, always learning new stuff, and he's just a great guy. We brought up a lot of young musicians in the Seattle area. Mark Arm of Mudhoney. What's her name?
Oh, good old what's her name? The famous one.
Of Sleater Kinney, Carrie Brownstein.
Her.
Used to come in. And
Carrie, if you're listening, she knew what she was talking about.
Yeah. And Penelope Houston of the Avengers, and so it was just like kind of, but these were all teenagers at the time.
So you've been in the Seattle music scene for a while now. Were you also playing at that time?
Yes. In fact, here we have the first single that we put out in 1979.
For those of you who are following along on YouTube, if you're listening in your headphones, you can't see, but she's holding up an actual 45 from, what was the date on that?
1979.
Nice. That is a classic.
And
What's the title of that song?
It's so there's 3 songs on it: Snow, Disco Dog, and Lies. Ooh. Lies is the song we actually still do with the band.
And what's the name of the band?
It's called Student Nurse.
Awesome. How did you come up with that name?
Ah,
The $10
the
million
better question
question.
is, how do you lose that
Oh,
name
yeah.
without losing your branding?
Yeah.
So John, who was also the drummer at the time,
Uh-huh.
he came up with the name, and it just kind of, once you start with a name, you just have to stick with it.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, so there's a lot of bands that keep changing their names, which
Yeah.
is a brand in and of itself, but we just stuck with the same name.
I love it though. Student nurse. Okay. Got a lot of interesting potential there.
Yeah. It is graphically, it does bring some ideas to mind. So
Yeah.
it's kind of good that way.
So tell me what back then or even now, what would you consider is your genre or your style of music?
So there's a genre called Zolo, which is kind of a little bit of punk rock, power pop, and then some avant-garde thrown in.
Okay.
And so it's kind of, it's not straight up punk rock. It's not straight up power pop. And then we do a lot of, like, all my guitar solos are always improvised. They're never, wrote.
Kind of like Ruboto.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's my learning deficit. I can't learn anything, so I just
wing
it.
Nothing wrong with that.
No,
Nothing
well,
wrong
it
with
works
that.
for me.
So how long were you playing as a band, as the original student nurse?
I think we were going for about 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we played lots of gigs. There is a website. It's studentnurseband.com if you want to go.
Was that the orig or is that new?
That's new.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's it's got all old stuff on there too. It's got all these posters that I hand printed, which
Cool.
Incidentally, I hand printed these covers
For this 45 that we're holding up.
and it's got names of all the venues that we played and just tons of little information that's kind of fun to look
That's
through.
cool.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes so that people can find out where you're playing. So tell me so now let's fast forward. There's a bunch of stuff in between that I want to touch on as well, just because you are, you have come to a lot of new things in your life later in life, like going back to school to learn tech, right? And when was that?
That was in about 2003, I think it was.
Okay.
So yeah, I was sporting the 50s by then, and I just woke up one day and said, "Oh, I know what I want to be when I grow up." It was something
Good for you. What was it?
it was something that I had a real affinity for computers. I sort of figured them out kind of easily, and so I thought, yeah, this doing websites and stuff could be kind of cool and kind of fun, and so I took that on and
Yeah.
powered through it, and I did pretty good, and then I
Yeah, you had a little sub career in
did.
tech, and because I know I brought Helena in to work with me at a large airplane manufacturing company that shall remain nameless, and you were like kicking ass and taking names.
yeah, just you just whatever's on the plate, you just plow through it. And,
Yeah.
I don't think about it too much. I don't worry about it. I'm kind of like, a lot of my friends that I have are, think very long and hard about all these things that they do. And they, and I'm just like, just start doing it and
Absolutely.
learn as you go. It's the only way you're going to learn it anyway. You can't sit there and spend 4 or 5 years looking through books trying to figure out how something works. By the time you've read it, it's all different.
Right.
So
Analysis paralysis.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people, and the thing is, I totally agree with you on that. And I think you and I are very much the same in that regard. It's just like, just do it and learn it and enjoy it. Enjoy that process of learning something new. Yeah. So once again, learning something new. So you did you had your tech career.
right.
Now you didn't still have the record store at that time. You had.
They did overlap a little bit.
Okay.
For a couple of years, and then once I sort of got my feet under me in the tech thing, I thought, well, oh my God, this is like positive cash flow instead of just money going, circling the drain constantly, running my own business, which actually ended up lasting for 31 and a half years.
That's amazing.
So, yeah, and then I did the tech thing for a few years. And then I actually went back to school again in 2016, maybe,
Okay.
and got another tech degree in web design.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which as soon as I walked off the campus, I threw the
Threw
the diploma behind me and said, never mind.
You say sometimes you don't even need it. It's more about like the proof is in the pudding, right? Can you do this or can you not do it?
And it was an opportunity to get the education on somebody else's dime. And
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
yeah, so, and it was fun. I learned a lot, and yeah.
So we're sitting here in your studio at Equinox, which is, tell me a little bit about Equinox.
So Equinox is a very great altruistic organization that has big dreams of, they're going to be building some housing down a few blocks from here that is going to be low-income housing. They have all these buildings, these outbuildings, they call them outposts, where different artists have different studios. Some people don't have tolerance for, being in a building with a lot of people. They want more solitude. So there's those kinds of places. There's some friends
So it's like
of mine.
an artist collective, sort of, or not collective. I mean, I don't know exactly what, but I mean, they're art studios.
Right. And we're all, once a month they have very open studios, which, droves of people come through and look at everybody's art. And
That's so cool.
And I've been here for like 2 years now, and I'm starting to build some community. It took a while, but
Yeah.
because I was over across the street where I was a lot more isolated. But yeah, so it's been great. And
Well, we're surrounded by your artwork here,
Yeah.
and I know that you weren't. I mean, you were always a musician, so you have that artistic nature about you. And then when did you decide to just take up painting? And what did you start with? Because I know you do oils now. So tell me.
Yeah,
a little
so
bit about that.
I had a living situation that wasn't tenable, so I got myself a little apartment, and I was feeling a little bit like, oh, I need something to do, and when I come home from work, and so I decided that maybe painting would be fun, so I went down to the art supply store and bought a bunch of watercolors and
Watercolor.
yeah.
Don't start with anything easy.
Yeah, well, and I was like, so I started doing little paintings, and I was getting some positive feedback, but they were little teeny tiny paintings, and then I met this woman named Stella Canfield, who was from Bulgaria, who's sort of one of my mentors, and she was like, "Why are you painting so small? It takes as much energy to go big, go big, go big." That's how she talks too. And I was like, okay. And so then I started painting bigger, and then a friend of mine named Mary Lamry is an oil painter, and she's an extraordinary painter. She really is. She's an impressionist painter, and I went to see a few of her paintings at the Seattle Art Museum rental gallery.
Oh, okay.
And when I just stood in front of them and I said, "That's what I want to be doing." It was all just this beautiful saturation and texture, and so I drove from there straight to the art supply store.
I love it.
All oil paints,
Wow.
brushes, canvases. Never looked back. Just
Yeah. Well, your work is amazing, I will say. And I was just blown away when I started seeing your work, evolve. And I'm sitting in your studio surrounded by your work, and it's so different. Every piece is different. You have a mix of styles, I
do,
think.
yeah.
And I think that that's really cool, because I think a lot of artists kind of get, in one thing, and they do that one thing really well. But I love that you just kind of, what is your process? What is your artistic process?
well, it varies. Sometimes, like a painting like this one.
So we're looking at a painting now for those of you who are on the YouTubes, or go to the YouTubes and you can see her.
This one's called "I Once Loved You."
Oh, I once loved you. It looks a little dark, I'm just saying.
Well, it is. So it was kind of born of grief. So,
Yeah.
but it was just. I just did it with starting with just like a ground of some burnt umber, and then I kind of like to let things drip a little bit, and then ideas just sort of create themselves.
Yeah,
And
I love that.
so that's one process that I have that I do, and then I have other processes where I do more literal things. Um,
You do some landscapes, you do some sort of geographic shapes and so forth.
yeah,
I mean, you do a little
yeah,
bit of
these are
everything.
kind of geometric types of things, but they're all, I think I gravitate mostly toward abstract,
Uh-huh.
but I do occasionally do some portraits
Oh, that's cool.
and I've done I did a big painting of a friend of mine's dog for her,
Oh, nice.
and she just loves it, and so different little things. But I don't know. I just like an idea will just pop in my head, and then I'll just do it. I won't. I mean, sometimes I think, oh, these canvases that I use, these gesso boards are like almost $100 a piece, and
Yeah.
I come in here and I plop one on the easel, and I'm like, oh my God, I got, it's all white. What the hell? What am I going to do? But I just, I've learned that I can paint my way out of most any corner to a degree of satisfaction for me personally.
That sounds like a quote for, I mean, like a life quote. I can paint my way out of any corner to some degree of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Was that what? I like that. That's going to go on a cocktail napkin or
Okay,
something. That you think?
a cocktail
Or a
napkin.
t-shirt.
A t-shirt.
I can paint my way out of almost any corner. I like that.
Yeah.
I think
So
those are words to
well,
live by.
and
For
it's
real.
it's kind of freeing because it's like, I've got this thing up here and I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, well, it's looking a little sloppy right now, but I know that I can do that. By the time I get to where I want to go with it, I'm going to be happy with it. And so it takes away that burden of putting something on a white canvas that costs a lot of money.
Well, yeah, and I think, writers have the same thing where it's like you get this fresh piece of paper in front of you and it's like, what am I gonna,
Yeah.
what am I gonna start with? What am I gonna put down there? So I love that you just sort of let the canvas speak to you and let the painting just emerge from
Right.
that and be okay with what turns out, or painting yourself out of the corner, or
Yeah.
rather than painting yourself into a corner. I mean, I think that and that, like I said, that's a good way to be in life as well, is to just be like, hey, what is the worst that can happen? Okay, I spent $100 on this canvas. I mess it up. Well, I can paint over. I can start over, right? Or I can just keep layering things
Yeah,
on.
you just keep going.
Yeah.
I never paint over. I just keep going.
Yeah.
And then, something will occur to me out of, I'll be like just working on it, and then I'll have some idea and it'll be like, yeah.
Cool.
And
Yeah.
sorry, you mentioned writing, and so I am a writer also, and
Oh.
so it is the same thing, but writing is a little bit tougher for me to get going on, and I would like to be able to, translate some of this freer, easier stuff to my writing, but I do write all the lyrics. For
Well,
the
I was just
song.
going to say, so the
Yeah.
writing aspect of it is it goes back once again, now we're full circle, right? There's that whole creative circle, writing, painting or drawing, that type of art, making music. So do you write the music and the lyrics, or
I
is it a
like
collaborative thing with your band members?
It's a little bit of a mix, but sometimes I'll have a chord structure that I've worked on and write the lyrics to that, which actually is I was thinking about that yesterday, that I'm actually a little bit more successful with that process than with trying to write lyrics than the chords. But then
So
I
music
really,
and then lyrics?
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
but
interesting.
I really like to keep the boys in the band happy and give them opportunities to insert their creative
Yeah.
voice into what we do. And
Well, it's a team effort.
yeah, it is.
It is,
And
when it
because if
comes
you
right down to it.
if you anytime you starve somebody of their creativity, they're going to lose interest like that. So it's like, so it's a lot of fun to just let them go, and it takes it takes quite a bit of work to get a song worked out. It's surprising how long it takes, because I mean, we have a couple songs that came together pretty quickly, but some of them are just like, you have to keep thinking about them and and memorizing lyrics. Oh my God, it's like
So
that ain't
let's talk
easy.
about that, because you got the band back together after how many years?
38-year break.
Whew, girl, I tell you what, that is good on you. And you're out there gigging,
Yeah,
right?
I think we've done about 32, 34 gigs in the last 2 years, which is a pretty heavy lift for a original band.
Yeah, I would
We're
say.
always out there playing.
So who's your following? I mean, do you get some of the original cast of characters that used to come to your shows and new people, or what's
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it?
We get so right now it's sort of interesting, but we're not the only band of our age genre that are out there playing right now. There's actually quite a few of them, and they're all just rocking their asses off. They're just as good now as, or even better, because they're less consumed with the idea of being, hip or whatever. And so we
They're
do
doing
get
it for the pure love
yeah,
of the sport.
and so those are really kind of a lot of the people that come to the shows, and then we have some newer people, younger people, and then, like you said, some of the people that just were fans back in the day that come
I
around.
love that.
Yeah.
I love that. So, what role do you play in the band?
I'm the badass bitch that runs the show.
Why doesn't that surprise me? So you're the lead singer.
Yeah,
So
and
you're
the lead guitar player.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And you sort of keep the boys in line?
Yeah, well, I don't know about keeping them in line, but I do. I'm fairly concentrated in my purpose.
Uh-huh.
I'll put it that way to be kind. So, so when we practice, they're all very cooperative. They love what we're doing, and we practice usually 2 or 3 times a week, which is also
That's
a lot.
serious.
And
Yeah.
and when we practice, we're down to business. We don't fart around and
Yeah.
noodle around and talk, and it's really a group effort, really. I mean,
Yeah.
I just kind of keep it because I'm the one that's booking the band. I'm doing all the graphic arts. I'm doing all the blah blah
Damn.
blah. So it's like
You are the badass bitch.
well, I kind of what can I say? But basically, I think that it's with the understanding that I completely respect those guys
Yeah.
and really super appreciate their involvement in it. And it's not. I mean, I'm just like sort of the fish that's in the front of the school, and then
Just keep swimming.
just
right,
keep
Dory?
swimming.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's it.
So if somebody wants to, so we're in the Seattle area and you play around the Seattle area. If somebody wants to come to one of your shows, how would they find out about it?
So we do have a group page on Facebook that's Student Nurse, and it's all capital letters. You have to do that, or you'll get like a billion Student Nurse
And
groups.
it may be a little on the creepy side, but
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, so all caps, Student Nurse. We're very socially media active, so we're always putting up our events, and
Awesome.
we have a very large slew of events coming up this summer. So just keep checking.
Any
there.
outdoor venues or?
Yeah, we're
indoor?
playing here actually.
Oh,
at
Equinox?
yeah,
Awesome.
in August they have a big open studio where they close off the streets. They have marching bands,
I've
food
been to
trucks.
those. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll be hitting the stage here at about 4:00 because we have a gig later that night
Damn.
up north.
I was going to say, because I got to get home and get to bed. No,
Yeah,
that would be me.
That would have been me 2 years ago. Like, oh man, how am I going to stay up? I'm usually like in bed by 6:00, and now I'm like out there going out to clubs and hanging out and listening to music, and
for
it's
you.
pretty fun. I mean, it comes and goes, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So what about your artwork? Do you have, I don't know that do you have any shows coming up or anything?
I don't right now. I
Is your
realized
artwork online? Do you have a art
no,
site?
I don't.
Oh, well, there you go. There's a project for you.
Yeah, I know, and I'm a web person, and I can't seem to get my shit together to make my own website. I sit down
Well,
to
you're
do
like
it.
the cobbler whose kids are
Yeah.
shoeless.
Yeah, I sit down to do it, and I just get completely overwhelmed, and I just go, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll work on it
Hire
tomorrow.
some teenager to do it.
Yeah.
I'll have it done in half.
Actually, I'm going to be talking to somebody down in New Mexico that may want to do it for me.
Cool.
Yeah, so
So I do have to ask you a question.
mhm.
How do you, first of all, if you don't want to answer this, that's okay. How old are you?
I'm a septuagenarian. So will be soon be 73 years old.
All right. Okay. So anybody that's out there listening that thinks you're too old to start something new or do something cool or pursue your dreams, Helena is here to tell you that you are full of the business because you just got to do it, right?
Yeah, there's no.
And you can paint your way out of any corner. Don't forget that too.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and you just. I mean, not having to work a job helps right now, but I did work a job up until a year ago, so it's
Yeah.
it comes and goes, but just keep moving,
Yeah. I mean, like, what would you advise somebody that, like, wants to maybe try painting or wants to do something? I mean, what gets you out of bed in the morning? There's a Japanese word called Ikigai. Have you ever heard that before?
No, I haven't.
What is your Ikigai? Like, what is your reason for being? What is your reason for getting out of bed in the morning?
Cheerios and coffee.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks. Cheerios and coffee.
Now, basically, I realize that my life and my standards or my methodology is, I'm really pretty random, except for, I have these band practices that are scheduled, but I'll come down to the studio one day or a few days in a row, and I'll be really motivated there, and then I'll be like, something else will be going. I'll have too much to do with all my graphic design stuff, and then I'll be like, oh shit, I've got all these medical appointments. So, it's just like, I just get up every day. Every day's a new day from scratch.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
It's a clean slate.
Clean
It's
slate.
a clean canvas.
Right. And I say just, like if you want to start painting or doing something, go down to the art supply store, spend a little money and go big.
Go big.
Cover
or
the
go
canvas. Don't go small. Don't think about it. Just do some stuff.
Home. I love that. But just like sort of general, it sounds like your approach to life is to just, if there's something that interests you, why not pursue it?
Right.
And go big about it, or don't bother doing it at all. I don't know. Does that sound?
That sounds right. Yeah. And
Helena, I got to tell you, I'm always enamored by all the cool stuff that you're doing, and I love that you just embrace life the way you do.
thanks.
And I promise I will come to one of your gigs very soon. I am not a late person myself
Right.
anymore, but anyway, I will put your band site in the show notes so that
Okay.
people can check you guys out and come to some gigs. And also you have a new record being released,
Oh, yeah.
and I just want to talk about that for a second. This is a new vinyl we've got here, and it's called Safety Last. I love that. Student Nurse, Safety Last. It's how many songs on this?
8 songs.
8 songs, and it's on vinyl, put out on Wacky Dog Records.
Yeah.
Is that your own label?
Yep.
That's your own label. I love that. Very cool.
Yep.
Well, that's a wrap. I'm going to let Student Nurse take us on out of here. And I'd like to thank my special guest, Helena Rogers, for sharing her wisdom, insights, and spreading her creative juices all over today's show. Thank you for listening to this episode of A Life Worth Being. I hope you found it fun and inspiring. And if you don't want to miss a single episode, please click the subscribe button. And don't forget to go over to your favorite podcast platform, whether that be Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate us 5 stars and leave us a review if you feel so inspired. And don't forget to share this episode with a friend. Have a fantastic week, everybody. I will see you next week. This is Sue Willoughby signing off. And don't forget, it's never too late to awaken a life worth being.